Ultimate Spider-Man issue 2. We read the first issue when it came out couple months ago, and we were fans of it. I think we liked the slower pace. Now, I was disappointed to find out that issue 1 was extra long, so I don't know that we can get used to that slow pace or the amount of character development they had in that first issue. I remember there were some genuinely touching, heavy moments in that issue, right?
Yeah.
And you don't read a lot of comics, so this was sort of your reintroduction into the world, because I think it's probably been a while since you've read any of them, and I think it was a pleasant surprise. But issue 2's been out for a little while. We finally got a chance to sit down and read it. You did read it, right?
I did. I was disappointed how I budgeted a lot more time to read it than I ended up needing.
Yeah, I got through it in like 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah.
But you can't hold that against them. I mean, comics are typically around 22 pages. That's the medium. But we'll get into our overall thoughts in a moment. First, quick recap of where we left off, and then we'll go into a recap and our review of issue 2. But where we left off, in an alternate reality, a villain called the Maker went back in time and stopped a bunch of superheroes from forming to begin with. For example, the spider that's supposed to bite Peter Parker, he plucked it from the time stream. Peter never got bit, never became a hero, but he did become a father, got married to Mary Jane, and had 2 kids. Not in that order. He got married, then he became a father. Not that there's anything wrong with doing it the other way. In this world, Tony Stark is a teenager, and he's taken it upon himself to try and restore heroes to this world. So he got that spider that was supposed to bite Peter, gave it to him, and gave Peter a choice. Accept your stolen destiny, become the hero you were meant to be, or you've got a pretty good life. Selfish, if you want to just go along with that and skirt your responsibilities as a hero, continue on with your life. But this world's Peter selfishly decides he's going to be a hero, even though how's he going to have time for his kids? Yeah. But he's kind of felt like he's been missing something his whole life, which most people can relate to, not me. So the issue ends with him allowing the spider to bite him. Tony also gave him a suit, a black suit. That's where we left off.
Pico tech suit or whatever.
Yeah. What the hell is a Pico suit? Did you look
it's
into
like
that?
I assume just the nano mumbo jumbo that makes everything work in the Marvel world.
Yeah, that's one change I'm making, by the way, to Gil Reads Comics. Every time I prepared an episode, it would take hours, because anytime I saw a reference to an event I was unfamiliar with, or anytime I saw a word or a name I didn't know, I would look it up. And then inevitably, I would see words and references that I didn't understand there, and I would look that up, and I would end up going on these infinite rabbit holes. Enough of that. I'll do a little bit of that, but not that much. So that's where we left off.
There is an epidemic affecting children everywhere. Comic books. Comics everywhere. Avengers, Batman, Wonder Woman, and they're in movies now, too. In the real world, there is no good and evil. Enough! I'm reading comics, and no one's gonna stop me.
Issue 2. We pick up. Peter's had the powers now for a couple of weeks, and it's the usual early days of Spider-Man. He's still getting the hang of things. Still getting into the swing of it.
Yeah, he might get into some sticky situations, too.
What's that one? What do you mean?
Sticky?
Yeah, no, he even says that. He goes I'm very sticky all over. I'm really strong. But he doesn't really know what to do with all that power yet. His kids read about him, this new spider guy in the paper, but nobody knows who it is. They don't know their dad is the guy in the suit. They just see this weird spider guy in the newspaper. And in particular, his daughter May finds him very scary. And he's like, he's not real, is he? He's like, you shut your mouth. You don't tell anybody about him I don't know who he is. Of course he's not real. What are you talking about? Peter, are you okay? You seem very nervous. You're going to start with me now too? But anyway, I like this scene, actually. I thought it hints at some of the first thing I thought about when I went into this new series, the idea that Spider-Man doesn't get his powers until he's middle-aged. It's an interesting what if, but now we're getting into the particulars of how that changes things. from getting your powers as a teenager. Because this already starts to tell you it's going to potentially put him into conflict with his children. And it's one thing when you're a young buck, young Peter, and your teacher's mad that you're late for class. It's another when it's in conflict with your role as a father. Your kids are frightened of you, that sort of thing. Then we pick up with J. Jonah Jameson and Ben Parker in a steam room. So in this world, Uncle Ben works for the Daily Bugle. He's alive and well. And J. Jonah Jameson, at least so far, isn't a jerk, though you see hints of it.
In fact, he's almost more dopey than a jerk. Like, he starts out this issue by saying, Ben. Yeah, it is Uncle Ben. He's like, Ben, I've been having coffee for breakfast every day of my life. You think that's bad for me? Like, what a dopey thing to ask about.
Well, he even says, I don't have even a glass of water or a glass of orange juice. And I wanted to stop me, like, first off, the glass of orange juice would not help things. This is somebody who's been living off Kellogg's propaganda, where they show you a balanced breakfast. You remember when we were kids? They would advertise on TV. They would say, the cereal is part of a balanced breakfast. Then you see the table. It's like a bowl of cereal, a muffin, a slice of toast, some bacon, a glass of juice.
A very, very part of this complete breakfast.
And I remember our younger brother, or my younger brother, your older brother, Adam, so impressionable at the time. He like insisted to our mother, he's like, I want a balanced breakfast. So he was having muffin, juice, cereal, all that stuff. But the funny thing is, so first off, to set up the situation, they're in the steam room after both of them quit the Daily Bugle because the owner, Wilson Fisk, was trying to exert too much control over the stories they would tell. But I actually read what Jonah was saying here differently. And you tell me if you think I'm giving it too much credit. But I wonder, guys can't talk about their problems. If something's bothering you, you have to find a circuitous way of getting there. Jonah, thinking about his own mortality, tries to bring it up subtly by saying, I've been drinking coffee every morning, been skipping breakfast. Is that bad for you? That's what I took from it. I actually think there's something beneath the surface there.
That makes sense. I wasn't giving the comic enough credit. Interesting.
Would like you to apologize. I would like you to apologize to the comic and to Ben and Jonah. All right, we'll take that as I guess that's the best I'm getting. Ben has a story because recently there have been several attempts on Wilson Fisk's life. Some guy in green armor. We met him in the last issue in a very awkward scene that we were not a fan of. Just the way it was drawn, it was hard to tell exactly what was going on, but this puts it into context now. The Green Goblin is trying to kill Wilson Fisk for some reason. Last issue, we saw him throw a bomb at his car, and this issue, we find out there have been several attempts. But Fisk, who owns the Daily Bugle, hasn't been letting them report on it. Instead, they've been reporting about sightings of this guy in a black spider suit who's been swinging around. And why are they doing that? It's a distraction. It's a good thing in the real world we never get articles, news stories that are meant to distract us from bigger things. Oh, look at this UFO over here. Don't pay attention to this thing over here that's actually important. This should be an interesting conflict too, because those pictures of Spider-Man, which is not, they're not calling him that yet, but the pictures of the spider guy showing up in the Daily Bugle are being taken by Peter. And Jonah's like, why isn't he taking pictures for us? Peter's not ready to take a risk like that and go work for this startup newspaper. He's got a family to worry about, so he's sticking with the Daily Bugle. So a lot of setup in this issue of potential conflict. And here's another one. Peter in conflict with Ben and Jonah's new newspaper. You're giving all the good pictures to the Daily Bugle. Don't you know you're working for a jerk named Wilson Fisk? And maybe that's where J. Jonah Jameson will start to get his claws out. And at the end of the scene, Uncle Ben and Jonah are like, we got to come up with a name for our paper. And Ben says, I'm working on it. Which felt to end on that line, made me wonder, are they setting up for something interesting? Like if you go into Marvel continuity, Marvel lore, is there some other newspaper that now you're going to be like, oh, in this reality, that newspaper was started by Uncle Ben and J. Jonah Jameson? But I looked at the list of newspapers in the Marvel world. I don't see anything. They're all very generic. So, did you have any predictions on what they're going to call their newspaper?
I was hoping you would tell me what it was.
The Parker Press. Just thought of that.
It's a nice name.
Or maybe they'll name it after Aunt May. So she was killed in a terrorist attack. Let's not go down that before the first issue. Let's not go down that road. Too complicated.
But also, he already named his daughter after May. It's like a lot of...
It's going to create another conflict. Uncle Ben names the newspaper like the May Times, and Peter's like, I took that name. How dare you? I'm gonna web your ass. Wait, what? What do you mean web? Wait, are you the spider guy? So Peter's swinging around, and he's like, I've got these powers. I can swing. I'm sticky. What am I supposed to do? And just as he's wondering that, happens to be a supervillain nearby trying to rob a bank. They don't name him, but clearly he's a riff on Shocker. He's got electricity gloves.
He does. He names himself. Remember, he introduces himself.
Oh, as Shocker?
Yeah. Okay, wait. I'll explain. I don't want to spoil it. You're about to explain it, and then I'll tell you when he does that.
Oh, okay. Well, Peter tries to talk him down, and Shocker is like, look, I'm sorry. You're right. I was clearly in the wrong for trying to rob a bank. You've convinced me. In fact, thank you for stopping me. I'm going to go home. Let's shake hands.
And then Spider-Man introduces himself. Does he introduce himself? I don't know. But then he goes, you can call me Shocker. And then he shocks him.
Okay. So he's absent. He tricked Peter.
I hope I said that right, or else I'm gonna be a real jerk the way I corrected you there.
Let me see. So Peter got tricked. He goes home. Yeah, he goes, just call me the Shocker. Yes, Peter says, sure, anytime, Mr. And then Shocker finishes the sentence.
Gil, I'd like you to apologize.
To who? I never said you were wrong. And also, I'll say this. As if it was so important to get that detail right. Like, Aunt May's dead. What? It doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. Wait, in what precise manner did he tell Peter that his name is the Shocker? Oh, and by the way, it's not Shocker, Daniel. It's the Shocker. And the T in the is not capitalized, in case you were curious. Well, actually, speaking of which, did you notice that in this comic, all the writing is proper case, right? The first letter of the sentence is uppercase and the rest are lowercase. Most comics are written all uppercase.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
But the original run of Ultimate Spider-Man, all the Ultimate comics back in the day were written in proper case. I think just as a way to further differentiate the two brands. You have the official Marvel continuity, and then you have Ultimate Marvel over here. And then when they started doing crossovers, you'd actually have some characters speak all caps and some speak in proper case. So it was a great way to differentiate. Wait, is that Tony from the main Marvel world, or is that Tony Stark from the Ultimate Marvel world? So although this reality is not the same one that was in the original run of Ultimate Marvel, this is a different one, they've retained that aspect of it. See, we spun gold out of your nonsense. All right, so Peter goes home, and he decides he's got to let off some steam, eats some ice cream on the couch while wearing his costume. And then his daughter walks into the room and catches him. So she's terrified at first. Why are you dressed like that crazy guy? And he's like, what if I told you he's dressed like me? Because he is me, and I am him. I am that guy. And she's like, what? I'm the guy in the How much clearer do I have to make it? I am the guy. It might not have gone exactly like that.
That was generally right.
Yeah. So he confesses his secret identity that he's had for all of 2 weeks. Tells his daughter, let's keep it a secret for now. Bribes her with some ice cream. And then she says, I still don't like the costume. And he says, maybe we'll do something about that. Cut to Wilson Fisk. He's being intimidated by a couple of guys. The guy with the ponytail and doing all the talking, that's Captain Britain. His real name is a French name. I don't know if you want to take a shot at pronouncing it. I could send it to you in the comments here, but I will not dare try and pronounce this.
I don't think I'm gonna dare try.
Let me. ChatGPT told me.
Go ahead.
Here's how ChatGPT says it: André Dugare.
That's pretty cool. This scene was a classic telling rather than showing scene.
Okay, I have a blind spot, honestly, for dialogue in comics.
Yeah.
I just take whatever it is. Like, I used to love Brian Michael Bendis. He's the guy who wrote the original Ultimate Spider-Man. I loved those comics, but people hated the dialogue. And I never noticed it. They were like, nobody talks like this. This is horrible. And if I read it out loud, I would notice, but I just have such a blind spot for it.
No, so the guy basically says to Fisk, like, my people, we took power over the world, we apportioned it among ourselves, and then we give power to people like you to let you play at kings in like a smaller domain and run the world for us. And it's like, I feel like if that were the arrangement, Fisk would already be well aware of it.
Like if we started every episode like, Daniel, you and I are brothers. We do a podcast together. We've had some starts and stops, but currently we're doing Gil Reads Comics. Now, the numbers, we don't number the episodes. All right? You know this very well. Yeah, so basically these guys, Captain Britain and Lester, who is Bullseye, notice he has an eye patch, that's Bullseye. The two of them work for the Maker, and they're reminding Kingpin of the arrangement. We took over the world, we gave you a kingdom, but you're screwing it up. You got to stop this green menace. Use the resources we gave you, all right? He tries to tell them this guy's more powerful than you think. And I think he's probably right. As they're basically saying, this Green Goblin fool, how have you not killed him already? But I don't know why you get what I'm saying, right? I've now repeated what you said, and now I've repeated it a third time.
Also, you said this Green Goblin fool.
Well, he's a fool, right?
We don't know he's a fool. He might be a hero. He's trying to kill Fisk.
How do you miss Fisk? This is the largest character in the comics so far. And he's tried to kill him at least 3 times that we're aware of. So unless this is part of a plan, maybe he wants him scared and it's part of some broader strategy.
I bet it's part of a broader strategy. He's trying to get to the people in charge.
Could be that. Yeah, it could be that, actually. That's a really good point. So I think, again, this issue seems to be all about setting up conflicts that are going to come about in the next few issues. So here, I think, first off, Fisk is probably smarter and more powerful than these two guys realize. And I think Fisk is right that the Goblin is more powerful than they realize. So there's going to be some interesting conflict here between Fisk, the people who work for the Maker, between the Green Goblin, and then, of course, Peter will get involved. We'll see what happens. Speaking of fools and Peter, he goes back out there, finds Shocker again, and then Shocker is like, no, please. Look, I'm stealing money from my wife. She's dying in the hospital. I need the money. And Peter is like, oh, seriously? Oh, I'm so sorry. He starts to fall for it again. Now, he does stop himself. They do fight, but Shocker once again zaps him, and Peter ends up in the dumpster, which is where he ended up last time. We failed to mention that. Peter's in the dumpster. Shocker takes off, and Goblin is floating there watching the whole thing transpire. So I got to think we're closing in on the two of them meeting. Back home, Peter's ready to
Wait. I did not notice that the Goblin was watching.
Yeah, I missed it the first time too. I don't know how, because it's pretty prominent. And when I edit this, I'll put pictures in and everything. But it's easy to I was going to say it's easy to skim past it, but it's like a whole page. I don't know how you missed it. Peter goes back home, and he's all dejected. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I can't do this. But then he sees a note on the fridge. His daughter drew a picture of a spider, a blue and red spider, and says, I drew a picture of your spider. I hope you like it. You're the best. Love, May. And then Peter thinks, maybe I'll give it one more day. Okay, so first off, what do we talk about, May? This is what we call a secret. You don't take secrets and tape them on the fridge, where Mom will see them, and now I got to explain this spider to her, all right? Now, having said that, I did think it was pretty nice. I don't like how we got to this moment. I guess we haven't. Let's talk about that first. Were you as annoyed as I was at how totally inept Peter is.
Wait 1 second. Is the camera gonna be all screwed up now that I? Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me adjust. Sorry, I don't know if you noticed I was adjusting. All right. Yes, Peter's very inept. But I kind of found it like charming. Like I kind of liked him in this issue, and I liked his relationship with his daughter, and I liked May also. I kind of feel like he just wasn't going to try that. I think he like decided he wasn't going to try that hard to keep it a secret. Like he even said he was going to tell, his wife.
Yeah. So I was kind of kidding about that part. I found the note actually very endearing. And I like that they're probably setting it up so he's going to take the colors from that note to design his costume. He already said, hey, we can make it less scary. And I think it's straddling the line because you want to sell that this is the first days of Peter's budding superhero career. So he's going to make mistakes. And on top of that, you're trying to sell that he's got too big a heart, where he's going to show too much empathy. But it's a fine line because you don't want it to go too far. This is a middle-aged Peter who's existed in reality for decades. So you'd like to think he's learned some lessons by now. I think a movie that did it well was The Batman, where when Batman's trying to use his flight suit for the first time and ends up hitting his head, because that's a really difficult physical feat to use a flight suit in the middle of Gotham City with trains and bridges everywhere. So that worked for me. This one, when he goes to shake the guy's hand, who's got big, weird-looking gloves on, you might not know that they're electricity-inducing, but I feel like I would have been more careful. But maybe he was feeling invincible because for 2 weeks now, he's been tossing himself around, feeling how strong and powerful he is. So, in principle, I like what they did. I think it makes sense to establish these things. And like I said, I like where we end up at the end. I like the relationship between him and his daughter, the way it starts out with her kind of scared. He got her past that, and now she's starting to contribute, drawing this picture for him. And like you said, he did already say, we're going to tell mom, don't worry. It would be kind of messed up if he forced his daughter to keep this secret. I think he's got to tell everybody now. He's got to tell his son too, because think about what it's going to do if they turn the son and daughter against each other. Like, I know something you don't know. I think that wouldn't be cool. So overall thoughts, Daniel?
I liked it. I mean, it was just short, but I liked it a lot. I'm excited about all the stuff they're setting up.
Me too. Loved the first issue. Liked the second one. Didn't like how short it was. Like you said, can't really do anything about that. And I think they're straddling a fine line with how bad at this Peter is to start. For me, it may have crossed that boundary a little bit, but I'm not going to hold it against it. So I guess we can, unless you have any other closing thoughts, the next issue comes out March 27th. So you can expect our coverage of it several weeks thereafter.
So here's one thing I was just thinking about.
Not really. We're going to get that episode out like the day that issue comes out. The latest I want our episode out is the next day.
So I'm a little confused. So we were at the hospital.
Shocking.